Hey everyone, welcome back to TV Guys, the show that was reminding you to save your brothers for a rainy day. I'm Matt.
It's awful. Brian.
I know you'd like it.
I thought you were going to make a specific different joke for the intro.
Nope, I'm keeping you on your toes. What was the joke you wanted me to make?
Okay. What I thought you were going to do like a Bob Saget style intro from How I Met Your Mother about the mother being, Sophia. In fact, I wrote out, because that's totally the kind of joke you would make.
It is absolutely the kind of joke I'd make. You're right.
Hey kids, remember when your mother was a crime lord? And I was so sure of it that I wrote this down.
I can't see it. Matt makes there it is, a How I Met Your Mother joke as Bob Saget.
Yep. And I was going to be like, I called it.
You did not. You failed miserably. I instead went the dark humor route, and now we're all better for it, really.
Yeah. So just to get things coming out right away, I mentioned before that we started. I am not a comics guy. I don't know anything about the Batman comics. So any kind of references to, this was like this from the comics, I don't get any of that. So
yeah, and
Matt, I know you know. Yeah, go ahead.
They did a decent amount of like their own interpretation of things.
Yeah.
And so there's going to be some ties and parallels and stuff that they drew on, but they really wanted this to stand alone. I think they did a great job. It's faithful to the character from the comics, but it is definitely its own interpretation.
Yeah, and it's really dark. Like,
yeah,
granted, in the first episode, he basically kills Alberto like on a whim because he was laughing at him. But even after that, I didn't realize how dark it was going to get.
Oh yeah, like lighting a son on fire in front of his mom as he hugs her, and then watching them burn to death with a smile on his face. Yeah, this is a comic book villain. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, there are a lot of comic book villains that didn't kill their brothers when they were 10 years old.
I'm sorry. I meant this is a villain story, because this is the one of the things whenever you have like a Breaking Bad or a Better Call Saul or something like that. And Saul is not on the same level as Walter White or as Oz. But when you have these sort of shows where you're following a character that you know is a villain, there's times you find yourself on their side because that's the perspective that you're following. Mm-hmm. And they did a really good job of making sure they kept in front of you, no, this is a bad guy. Just remember, this whole time, obviously, this is a bad guy. You can have respect for the way that he wheels and deals and manipulates and worms his way out of stuff, but there is no doubt what sort of a person Oz is.
Yeah. And they definitely do that. Like anytime you start to maybe feel for him, he does something like, oh man, like he is a villain.
Yeah.
And I like the Breaking Bad because there are a lot of you could make a lot of Breaking Bad comparisons, with Oz and Victor being like Walt and Jesse, and the Maronis and Falcones being like Gus Fring and the Salamancas. There's a lot of shared DNA in the themes.
There is. And I mean, that itself was even influenced by The Sopranos. And I didn't watch a lot of The Sopranos, but I saw responses of people drawing the comparisons because both of them are mobster, gangster type shows. And they follow a character that is not a good person to base your life off of, but you still find yourself on their side for other things.
So one thing, I was always on edge whenever Victor was on screen because from very early on, I could just see his story is not going to end well. And so many times I thought he was going to die. And then, of course, when he actually did, I didn't see it coming. At that they waited till like the very last minute. You know how many times, like when he invited his girlfriend over to Oz's house, I'm like, why are you doing that? You're inviting someone who's not in that world to a mobster's house. I thought for sure he was going to show up and kill her. And so many times I thought, okay, he's going to die. And he like weaseled his way through until the very end. They're like, hey, I like you. We're like family. Yeah, that's why I have to kill you.
Man, I wanted to save some more of this talking, and maybe we'll come back to it. But just that moment itself, like, Oz does a great job, or Colin Farrell does a great job of showing Oz having this front. And he's always spewing out bull crap. He talks to save his life, but on the inside, he only cares about himself. But we see him at times cracking and caring about Victor. And I mean, even just that first initial, like when he hears him stutter and he's going to kill him and he hears him stutter and it's like, all right, I'm not going to kill you. Like we see that chip beneath the exterior of he can recognize a kid with a disability that he has. And so he sees himself in him. And so we see that different times throughout the series. And then at the final one, when Vic calls him family and he just lets out the exasperated F word, like he let his guard down again. And he's saying that for himself of like, crap, I know what I have to do. He said he's family. I get it. That means he can't stay alive.
Yeah. But they did a great, like I was expecting him to die every other time he was on screen except for when he did. So well done.
There was a number of like surprising deaths where it's like, it's not that I was surprised they died, but when or how they did was the surprise.
Who was the most shocking one for you?
I think it was actually the Johnny
Vitti?
Yeah. When he was sitting at the table and he was like, you know, she spared him out of everyone else in the house and she was going to use him, but the way that she used him was actually really surprising. And so I thought, okay, he's going to make it alive and somehow he's going to stick around. But it was just like, no, I'm using him as an example and I'm going to kill him in front of everyone. And so I did not see just a boom death right there.
That she knew what she was doing when she saved him from the gassing. She knew exactly what she was doing. And she knew that and the whole thing about locking him up and having him say, no, I could be helpful to you. That was basically, it was all her idea, but she was making him think it was his idea the whole time. She might be the more terrifying character, even more than Oz.
Oh man, and she played it so well. All right, we're getting way ahead of it. Let's back up. Did you watch the movie, The Batman?
I did. I watched it. I'm not a huge fan of Robert Pattinson as Batman, but I liked the movie.
He doesn't play Bruce Wayne at all. Like I didn't like his Bruce Wayne quote unquote because he's just the Batman the entire movie. He's just the mopey emo whatever. And there's a lot of it that worked, but I was like, I want to see. I think Ben Affleck had a really good blend of the two, and Christian Bale was a really good Bruce Wayne, not as good of a Batman. So you know, it's hard to do both at the same time. And so I didn't mind what he brought to it, but this show and that movie, like Christopher Nolan stuff was darker, but this I felt like just went too far past the line. But like I like the Penguin and I think Batman was filmed really well. I don't have those technical things to say against it and acted and etc. But I do have a hard time with some of the dark parts of both the movie and this show so far.
Yeah, and I'm glad that the show wasn't about Batman; it's about the Penguin. But in universe, why was Batman not stepping in at all through any of this? Or is it because they were all mobsters killing each other?
That in universe, it's like we don't have the real answer to it. We can only speculate. And maybe he just had other stuff that he was dealing with because I mean, this is still not too long after the city was flooded. There's a lot of crowd control. And Oz is playing things close enough to the chest that it's not capturing the major attention like a Maroni does or like Falcone did to begin with. I think.
Yeah, I suppose that was in the back of my mind. I'm like, I don't want to see Batman, but I want them to have a throwaway line about like, oh, Batman is off in Tokyo fixing whatever or something.
He's off in Tokyo. He's on vacation. Bats are out there. Here's one thing that I like. So let's set the stage too, because we've already talked a little bit about stuff in the future, but like starting off at the beginning of this, going off of the movie The Batman, this is I really like this time period in Batman type of comics because there's a lot of different points you can jump into the Batman lore, and you can see a Batman who has the Bat family and has Robin and Batgirl and have all of those, and like the game Arkham Knight is a really good example of that time frame where all the villains are established. No one has new origin stories. They've been terrorizing the city for so long but Batman has been able to trust people. But then you go to the exact opposite side, and that's where like this movie is, and the Christopher Nolan trilogy was, and and like some of the more popular graphic novels like The Long Halloween, they are in that first couple of years where the crime families are the reason Batman came into power, not any of these supervillains. And so there's not like the Joker and Poison Ivy and Mr. Freeze running around causing havoc. It's these crime families that are this organized mafia that Batman has stepped in to try and take care of. And in dealing with them, it leaves this vacuum where it allows the craziness to respond to Batman's craziness, and all of these supervillains come out of the woodwork. So I like this time period because it can be very grounded like this show is.
Yeah, because in the show we've seen, we saw the Riddler kind of emerge from power, and of course the Easter egg with him finding the Joker in the prison, and then we see the Penguin becoming the Penguin. Like he wasn't a major player in the game until he made himself a major player in the game.
Yeah, and yeah, you said. And then we've had Catwoman.
Oh, Catwoman too.
We also have had probably, and this is more speculation, but the doctor that took a shine to Sophia, there's a lot of rumors that he might turn into Scarecrow, which I can see them setting him up for that. And so
I don't know anything about Scarecrow because here's the thing with the Christopher Nolan or with the Christian Bale trilogy. I still to this day, I never saw Batman Begins. I've only seen Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises.
And Batman Begins, like that Scarecrow, they do a good job in the little bit of capacity they have with him, but he's really underplayed as a villain. And in fact, at the end of the movie, sorry to spoil a 20-some-year-old movie, the last we see of him is he's like terrorizing Katie Holmes's character, and she pulls out a taser and shoots at his face. And when he has the mask on, and it hits him like in the mouth, and so like zaps in the mouth, and then he makes like this girlish scream, and he's on a horse when he was terrorizing her, and so the horse just trots off, and he screams into the night. That's the last we see of him, because there's a bigger villain that he's dealing with.
I could have sworn that Scarecrow made like a blink and you miss it appearance in Dark Knight in the very beginning.
He was, and then he's also in Dark Knight Rises as well.
Okay, I know because I know I've seen a little bit of it, but I don't know the story behind him. Not like I know, excuse me, not like I know Joker, Penguin, Riddler.
Yeah, he the best media that I've seen a Scarecrow in outside of the comics is in the Batman Arkham games, and so he has a fear toxin that he works on, and usually it's presented as gas, and so then the gas will cause these hallucinations and will cause like people to really experience their darkest fear as if it's happening right there in front of them. And so he can be a terrifying villain based on how dark you want to get in portraying his character. And so they use him really well in the Arkham games, but this level of darkness for Batman, I'd be a little worried what they do with the Scarecrow character in that world.
Yeah. So talking about the Penguin, so watching the movie Batman, they basically say that Salvatore Maroni's been locked up, so all of his operation transferred over to Carmine Falcone. But in this show, we see that the Maronis are still operating. Like he's still coordinating from prison, and his wife is taking out the outside lead. So how is it that in the movie it kind of made it sound like it was all just copy paste over to the Falcones, whereas now there's still very much fighting factions.
Yeah, I wonder if that's either a retcon or if it was more like the Maronis are kind of biding their time and they're kind of working in the background without really making a big stink. Because it definitely isn't that idea of, okay, these are all ours and they belong to us, but I'm sure the Falcones did infringe on the territory and took over spots that Maronis had previously had. And so that's why no one was surprised when Alberto Falcone showed up dead and Oz was able to pin that on the Maronis.
Yeah. And then towards later on when all the other gangs show up, are those like sub gangs or are those just gangs that aren't nearly as powerful as the big two families?
It's probably the sub gangs. They're probably a little bit of both, maybe. That there's for hire, but at the same time they're their own independent. I don't know because they're not like specifically big comic book names, because again, like when I look at the comics, you do have Falcones, you do have Maronis, but you don't have too much of other gangs. I think there's even another family that I don't remember and can't recall off the top of my head. But
yeah.
So this show though, going back to Falcone is like we talked a little bit about Kristen Maloney. Is that how you pronounce her name?
I don't know. Kristen Milioti.
So what? Good old C. Because
she's a fantastic actress.
She is, and this show like really high. I knew she was from the first time I saw her in How I Met Your Mother. I was like really impressed with what she did with what she was given on that, and then just anytime I've seen her since, I'm like, yeah, she's really good. She should be in more stuff. But this show now, and we just had Golden Globes when we were recording this. We just had Golden Globe nominations announced, and so of course Penguin is nominated for the show, and then Colin Farrell and Kristen Maloney are both nominated for their respective roles, and they absolutely deserved it because they both did tremendous, absolutely fantastic.
So I think we should talk about both of those characters. But is that where we were going? You're starting with Sophia?
Yeah, I'd definitely love to start with Sophia because she, the writers themselves had said she's the closest thing we have to a protagonist, and I'm like, at times maybe, and maybe before, like we can definitely understand she really was the one who got screwed over the most. She got such a bum deal that really sucks, and we can empathize with getting thrown into Arkham and having no one who was there for her. And it was not fair too, obviously.
Yeah. I think you can kind of see her that way until the gassing, because I mean, granted, yes, she did save the only child from the gassing, which is shows some humanity. But even though she had such a contentment from her family, I just the sheer like, I don't know what the word is, like the heartlessness of just gassing your entire family all in one moment.
Yeah. And I mean, you can make the argument, like, let's not quibble about, hey, how good is murder or not good is murder. You can make the argument about how terrible they are and that, like, they pretty much were okay with her dying. And okay, sure, I get it. But at the same time, we're all not pro murder here. And
no.
Yep, still, it's kind of like what the Peralta line, cool motive, still murder.
Yeah. Not something that you feel like we should have to specify, but we're talking about fictional people in a fictional movie. It's different.
We are. If people can do the thought experiments about like, hey, was Thanos actually right? Like, yeah, we can disbelieve the hypotheticals here for a moment.
Well, okay. One sentence, then we'll come back to Penguin. With all the power that Thanos had with the stones, couldn't he just make that many more resources to allow the same people on Earth to thrive?
No, for reasons that are longer than this. And I won't pretend that I know for sure that the no answer is correct, but it's like the sheer amount of mass produced. And I also think that that's a law of physics of not being able to produce mass, that conservation of mass. And so even the most powerful stones on the planet can't create mass. So anyway, going back to
Penguin.
Back to the Penguin. She definitely is, even if whether you want to say she's your protagonist or not. I think I think the closest thing we have to a protagonist in my eyes is probably Victor.
Yeah, Victor.
But like she does such a great job of showcasing a broken woman, but yet she still is able to be the strong, underappreciated or undervalued. It's kind of like that ace in the hole. I can't think of the word for it, but it's like that one that you don't see coming, the dark horse. Underestimated. There you go. I knew there was an under in there.
Yeah.
And so like I loved being able to watch her arc of no one expecting what she was going to bring to it. And Oz saw a little bit of it though. And I think that's where early on their relationship had some legs. And I was so surprised at that one episode where it's like finally it's like, hey, I screwed up and I let you go to Arkham, but you know what? I'm here for you, and I'll never lie to you again. And then they show up and like, well, I don't know who this person is. It's like, I know that I killed her brother. It's fine, whatever. Like immediately he goes back on his word within like 10 minutes.
Yeah, and he backstabs everybody because then he's at that moment he's working with the Maronis, and isn't like the next episode or the one after he kidnaps their son.
Yep. Very quickly after that.
Yeah.
Or I think the next one in plot wise, because I think after that one it was the Sophia centric episode that did the flashback and then went back into, I think, I don't remember.
Yeah, but you're right. Like she was completely underestimated. Her family didn't care about her. They brought in Max Medina to come and be the family leader along with Johnny Vitti, and then it just came to be, oh, so you don't matter. Go to Italy, so just get out of our hair. And she realized she had to make that choice to, okay, am I gonna just get out of the way and live my life, or am I gonna stand up for what's right? Because by now she knows that both her mother and her brother, like the two family members who she actually cared about, are both dead because of people associated with this family.
Yeah. And what I liked about some of the theming of that too, because both the Batman and this movie are really, I don't want to say they're really political, but they are hitting on hot button ideas of the time. Because one of the big current ideas of the time is the social movement of women empowerment. And so they take that concept of a victimized woman and showing her taking back her life, but yet we can't root for her because the way she's taking back her life is by murdering people and still wanting to be the crime lord of Gotham. Yeah. I mean, good for you. You got goals, but I can't get behind that. And then you couple that with Oz's part of it, which is another social idea of like the wage and disparity and like what you come from versus what you are capable of. And so there's a bit of that, the eat the rich sort of idea with Oz's character, and like, hey, I'm like you guys. I've been from this poor area, and I grew up in Crown Point, and I'm just ready to get back at these billionaires who don't care about us. And that was a big part of the Batman too. But I really like that it highlights the disingenuousness of people who, when they finally are able to act on that, if they don't have pure intentions, that it is all about selfishness, that they use that as a crutch. She can use that as women's empowerment. This is my crutch. He can use, oh, I'm a poor boy, nobody loves me, as a crutch. But yet, when they start to get the power themselves, they are just perpetuating the cycle, and they're still hurting and killing and destroying.
Yeah, and they're both pretty much willing to kill anybody who is an obstacle to getting their goals.
Yeah. And it gives a great nuanced discussion of that, because it's not, I mean, you'd think it's a simple thing. Should poor people be treated well and be cared for and be given opportunities that rich people are given? Yeah, we should obviously want to give equal opportunities to all people. Is it that simple? Not always. Are there people who are poor because of, no, that's not what I was going with. Are there, I'm trying to dissect this in real time as I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
But I like the conversation of it, I guess, is what I'm trying to get at.
And nothing with that is, so do you think Salvatore Maroni, before his wife and son were killed, was really as ruthless as them? Because it seemed like before then he kind of had a code, like, you hold your end, I'll hold up my end. Like, he had no problem with Oz personally until the killing.
Yeah,
because like, hey, like I may not like you, but we're working together means to an end.
Well, the little bit that we saw was how he treated Sophia when he got out and when they were starting to work together. And Sophia had, after being told all her life how terrible the Maronis are, and there's a reason we have to kill them and be against them, etc., that when she finally has a moment with Sal, he's more of a caring person to her than her father ever was.
Yeah.
Just even simply making breakfast. Like, I doubt her dad ever made her breakfast, you know?
Well, in that moment, like, he's the father that she never had, and he's the kid that she's the kid that he just lost.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, you know, even though, again, they're crime lords, you still are like, hey, maybe these people aren't as bad as the ones who want to villainize them are saying they are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like maybe like was Clancy Brown greedier as Mr. Krabs than as Maroni?
The questions we ask ourselves.
I had to at least once.
This show, one thing, like, obviously this is high quality writing and direction and acting and cinematography, all of that. But where you have to have solid writing is in your relationships, and this show does a bang up job with all the different relationships. How Oz is with Sophia, how Oz is with Victor, how Oz is with his mom, or how Sophia is with with Maroni, and the leftover residual bitterness of her dad, and etc. Yeah. And so I really love these moments, like the one where Maroni makes her breakfast or something like that, that like really highlight how depraved these people are based on how they relate with each other.
Yeah. It's all like their loyalties, their relationships are always shifting. And you can see so many times, like, their tough, like, I'm going to kill everyone persona is just like, there's real vulnerability behind it. And we get to see that peek behind the curtain as the audience member.
Yeah. And so let's talk about Oz's relationship with his mom real quick. Yeah. Because that was a great peel back the layers. Because early on, when we first see him, you feel bad, like, oh, Oz, like, that sucks. Or not amnesia, dementia
or Alzheimer's.
Terrible disease. I hate it. I like that. To me, is one of the worst fates. Not that I'm volunteering for this, but I would rather have cancer than dementia, because to me, memories are who you are, and to lose them, I can't imagine a fate worse than that. So you feel compassion for Oz and his mom. And then you see his mom like be mad at him, and some of the ways that she treats him, and some of the mean things she says to him. I'm like, oh, when she was at her healthiest, I wonder if she was still this way. That explains a bit about who Oz is. And then they freaking flip that on you with the flashback and showing you that his mom knew. She knew what Oz did, and she only had him. She lost the two kids that weren't monsters and was left with this child who was attached in a super unhealthy way to his mom, and she just resented him for killing her kids. Like,
well, then so
bad.
When she was at first she kind of had that unofficial, I'm gonna have with that mobster friend of hers, like, I'm gonna let you kill my kid. And then they showed the flashback when they're at the club, and he gives his whole, like, child Oz gives his whole, I'm gonna get you whatever you want, I'm gonna give you a big penthouse and all this. Like, what about that speech made her go back on his side?
I don't know if it even was the speech so much, but it's just like, just think about the reality of the situation. Like, he may not be the kid that you wanted, but he's the only kid you had left. And do you lose all three kids, or do you at least keep one of your children? Like, as a parent, I know that none of my kids would ever do something so depraved, but it's like, even then, you still love your kid, despite hating what they would have done, or like having resentment towards them,
Yeah. Well, then I was thinking about this. He's like, so with Oz, his underlying, what he says, and it might be some truth, his whole motivation for everything is he wants to give his mom the life she deserves, give her the penthouse, all that kind of stuff. I don't really think that's it. I think it's more he wants to be seen as this amazing guy. Because, like, and at the end when Sophia and the one guy with him were about to cut off his mom's pinky and said, like, admit that you killed your brothers, he still wouldn't do it, because it wasn't about saving his mom, it's about saving his image at all costs.
Exactly. Yeah. That was a great scene too, because like, that might be the first family therapy he's ever had, and it did not go well.
Yeah.
Then, but that's exactly the point of that scene, is to highlight how full of crap he is, and we can make the argument that Oz, maybe he actually believed that. Maybe he actually did think this is for what's best for her. and I'm doing what's best for her. And even to the point, and this is again shows how self-centered Oz is, because I do think that he believes that, and he believes that he's doing the best. But to show how self-centered Oz is, that when his mom, when she was cognizant, said, "Hey, kill me if I ever get stuck on a machine and am forced to live that way. I don't want that to be my life. Let me die." And yet he doesn't honor her wish, and instead drags her from the hospital to be at his house and keep her alive despite her wishes. Like that highlights the selfishness of Oz.
And you see the tear during now. Like I feel like she's aware that what's happening, which is even worse.
I missed
that. They show a close up of like her like in a coma at the house, looking out the window, and there's like a single tear that goes down her face.
And how sick is Oz? Then he goes out and he has Eve there, who is wearing his mom's dress and telling him she loves him, and then they're going to be inappropriate together, and it's like, you are messed up, man. This is mommy issues on a scale I have never seen in my life.
Yeah, whatever she's getting paid is not enough.
No.
He's like, tell me you're proud of me. Tell me you love me. Oh my gosh.
And that was a unique thing to like. One of the writers as well in one of these after episode vignettes was saying that like probably the healthiest familial relationships we have in the show is between Eve and her girls, which I can understand, because like Eve actually does care about the girls that she protects and will do anything for them. And so that's why she kind of sells Oz down the river midway through the season when Sophia shows up, because she realizes Oz doesn't care about her. Oz is who she thought he was. He only cares about himself. So she's fine selling him down the river because they don't have that relationship that Oz thinks they have.
And when she was telling Sophia, like, just don't hurt my girls. Like basically, like, you kill me if you want, but don't hurt my girls. Sophia was taken aback by that kind of loyalty, because I think outside of Alberto, she never had that kind of loyalty.
Yeah. Yeah, there was definitely the respect that Sophia had for Eve in that moment, and that saved Eve's life.
Mm-hmm.
For sure. All right. Well, we haven't talked about our favorite stuttering Stanley, is Victor.
I was just gonna say Victor.
He, again, the guy that as soon as they introduce him, and the way they introduce him, you're right. We're like, this kid's dead. He's not gonna make it. And especially like if you follow kind of fan reaction, and as they're watching through, they kept citing this line about Colin Farrell said in an interview before. He's like, by the end of the show, you are going to remember how much you hate Oz. And I don't know in his head if he was talking about him killing his brothers or him killing Victor, but a lot of people took that to mean by the end of the show, he's going to kill Victor. And so we're not going to get too attached. But dang it if we didn't almost get there, right?
Yeah. Right up to the very end. And you can see so many moments of Victor choosing to go forward in this life, to go forward. Like, he could have left with his girlfriend on the train and walked away from that entire life. He had that opportunity, and he chose to stay. I think it's because he saw a better life for himself by working himself up in the crime business.
Yeah. And someone who saw him for who he was, and they saw past the stutter that he had. They saw past the PTSD he had of watching his parents die, pretty much. And like, this was the one who gave him a shot. And so there is like, that's what sucks for Vic, is he's so loyal, and yet that's what got him killed, is his loyalty.
Yeah. And I feel like there are a lot of similarities with Vic and Oz, but Victor still has his humanity. Like, he's not going to be the one to like be as ruthless and kill the same way that Oz does.
Yeah. It's fun to go back through the show, or like look at people's responses and find like all the tiny little nods of things that are setting up like future things. I don't know why I started thinking of this, because now it's almost like we're gonna change subject, but like the one that I just like came to mind was a line that he has when they go down to the sewers, and like Oz says something like, it feels like being home or whatever. He's like more comfortable being underground or whatever. And it's like, you killed your brothers down here, and that's the line that you say. You feel a sense of relief being in the spot where you murdered your family. What a
Yeah.
what a jagoff, you know?
Well, and that's that bit of like sociopath or psychopath. I forget. I'm not exactly sure which one is which, but he's one of those, because not only that, but also in that flashback, he goes he knows, he looks out the window, he knows that his brothers are drowning in the sewers, and he just like cuddles up to his mom watching Fred Astaire dancing and just smiles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then going back to the little details with Vic and tying that back in, is that there was a moment when they're sitting at a restaurant, and Vic's gonna order, and the waiter's trying to finish the sentence for him because he's stuttering, and rightfully so, Oz stands up and says, "No, don't do that. Let him finish." I'm like, that's good on you, Oz. That's a great thing. Give the power back to Vic. And so Vic does order that, and the waiter is patient with him, and great. Later in that episode, it's the he has the panic attack at the discotheque. He has the panic at the disco, and
it's a good one. I didn't think of that.
Thank you. It just came out, and then he has to go into the bathroom and is freaking out, and then Oz comes in, and he's yelling at him, and Vic tries to explain himself, but Oz cuts him off, and he doesn't let him finish. He does what he chastised the waiter for. And so it's like being able, they do a great job with this writing of keeping your characters consistent, where it's like, sure, he would be in a calm situation, he would stand up for Vic, but when push comes to shove, he's only about himself. He doesn't care about Vic's disability or being kind or having any sort of compassion for anyone else but himself.
Well, and you also see that when when Sophia sends the car with the bomb in, as soon as he sees the bomb, he hightails it himself down that sewer hole. He doesn't care about any of the rest of his crew.
Man. Or again, going back to the backstabbing one of like hey, let's all open a beer, cracks a beer of everyone. Every single person he cracked a beer for, they all die in the next episode.
Yeah.
Or maybe not. I think there was one who was working with Vic that they didn't die or something like that.
Oh yeah. And some of them turned on each other, but yeah, they're like I said, my name in our StreamYard thing is everybody dies, which not literally but most everybody dies.
Yeah, everyone but Oz, really. Oz, Eve, and technically his mom, but she's brain dead. I forget, did Sophia die? Or no, she went back to Arkham.
Yeah, but you know, when they had that moment with when Sophia has all the mobsters, all like the B-level mobsters at her house, and basically says, "Hey, I'm moving. You can whoever brings me Oz can get all my stuff." As soon as it was what's the old Asian guy, Marvin Candle from Lost, he's like, I recognize people from their other stuff. That's just how I do it.
Yep.
When he brings them, I expected her to be like, "Thanks," and then shoot him in the head right there. That's what I was expecting.
Yeah, we had two Dharma Initiative persons who were gang members here in Gotham.
Who was the second one?
Clancy Brown. He was Inman.
Oh yeah.
That was actually my first introduction to Clancy Brown, not outside of voice acting, because I'd heard him in other stuff before, but
I think me as well.
To put so.
Yeah, I mean, especially then I was thinking like she's not, and then of course when she sets her house on fire, which we see her set 3 rooms on fire, and then the next we see outside like the whole house, like every room is on fire. Are we to assume that she did that in more rooms that we didn't see?
Yeah, the house was made out of kindling. That was the construction material that they used for it. It's Gotham. It's cheap.
Yeah, but I mean, like in the bedroom, we see her like pour alcohol over the bed, then that would start the bed on fire. But then to get the kind of flame, she would either have to wait a long time for fire to spread, or else do that exact same montage in a lot more rooms than we saw. We saw 3 of them.
Yeah,
we saw the bedroom, the desk, and like the main meeting living room area.
Yes. So real quick, I wanted to. Do you have more about the show? Because I wanted to expand a little bit more into something else. But did you have more that you're
I don't know.
thinking?
I probably could. I mean, there's nothing that everything that I thought about talking about, we already have. So you can go ahead.
Okay, how many portrayals of the Penguin have you seen?
Just this one and Danny DeVito.
And Danny
And
DeVito?
the Danny DeVito, I haven't seen that movie in years.
And those are very different interpretations. So there's a lot of interpretations of Penguin I've seen, and some of our fans maybe they've seen a number of these too. We'll see how many that you know. But here's all that I've seen. I've seen Burgess Meredith from the original Adam West Batman, and he is that interpretation is just very corny. I mean, it's Adam West's Batman. All of it is corny. It's just like melodrama. That version of Penguin, they took and they did a darker version of that for the Batman Arkham games. And so it still is a bit cartoony and cheesy, but they give him this threatening Cockney accent and they definitely make him very sadistic in that. And so they take the melodrama over the topness of the character and just put a dark filter like it's Snapchat for the Arkham games. I think that's my favorite interpretation, honestly.
Okay.
This one's really good too. But then they had a similar version that was played in Gotham, but he was a little bit more because he was the younger version. This is like early Batman, so it was like a 20-year-old Penguin, and he's actually a thin, gaunt little like skinny guy, and so he leaned more in the Gotham episodes. He leaned a little bit more into the insecurity, which that is a part of Penguin's character. Yeah, he's insecure about his monocle bad vision and his gimp leg and being short, and like it's all me, mine. Let me collect all this stuff so I can show everyone how big of a man I am. So that's this big part of his character. And so they do a good job of like the emotionally stunted form of that with the Gotham one. But the Danny DeVito Penguin, that is like you took a penguin and you like injected this monster venom into him, and he's a hybrid creature beast thing that like it's a unique take, and I don't hate it, but boy is it disgusting.
Yeah. No, yeah, it's yeah, it almost looks not human.
Yeah. So this is a refreshing because it's different. Because I feel like the Gotham and the Arkham games ones are different sides of the same coin. And like I said, they're the darker filter of the Burgess Meredith one. But this is more of like a Tony Soprano type Penguin. You know, he's still got like those core elements of like he's insecure and it's all about him and it's all about the control and the power. That is absolutely who Penguin is. 100%. As long as you get those, you're good. Which again, the Danny DeVito one didn't really have that. He was just feral. Okay, whatever.
This one is feral. Colin.
Shut up. But yeah, Colin Farrell's portrayal is the best acting for sure that I have seen of any Penguin. He's just phenomenal.
Talking about the different characteristics of Penguin, so they say that he, it's implied that he was born with a bad leg. Is that kind of consistent across all of them, that he has that wobble because of a bad leg?
It depends on the interpretation. I think most of them that I can think of, that is the defect from when he was born. And then like in the Arkham games, like the monocle that they have is not a monocle. It's actually someone came into the Iceberg Lounge and like they were upset that they lost a card game or whatever, smashed a bottle, stabbed him in the eye with it, and so that is actually the bottom of a Coke bottle that is the monocle over his eye. And
that's
like
really dark.
It is, but it's a unique take, and I'm like, all right, I'll go with that. That's fine.
And this version, clearly he had scars on his face. Did we ever find out like what was that from? I was expecting like a flashback about why Oz had those scars.
I don't think they ever explained it in either this or the movie.
Okay.
I could be wrong. I don't remember. It's been a while since I saw the 2022 one, but
yeah. But I think, are they planning on doing a Penguin season 2, or is it like a maybe not kind of deal?
There's talks about it right now. So they announced the Golden Globe nominations. the category that Golden Globe that the Penguin was nominated for is all in limited series. And so if they were to announce a season 2, they can't until the award show is done, or else they kicked out of that category. But likely there's a lot of talk, like Kristen Maloney's like, I want to play this character again. I want to come back for Penguin 2. But they've also said, hey, there's a lot of other villains we can do this with. And people are like, oh, you're going to do the Joker. He's like, well, not necessarily. So there's either the possibility of another Penguin type show with other villains. There's a possibility of Penguin season 2, or there's also a possibility of seeing Oz again in Batman 2, which I think is the most likely outcome.
It was especially at the very end we see the Batman signal.
Yeah. Yep. I imagine he'd still have a similar role that he did in the Batman, the 2022 one, where he's not the main guy, but because he's so connected and he is like a big mob boss, and he's gonna have the power that the Falcones or Maronis had. All of them are gone. That he's gonna be kind of a step to the higher bad guy.
Well, so with Batman 2022, we have Penguin, we have Catwoman, and potentially Sophia, because the whole thing at the end about them being half sisters. You have the nod that the Joker, who was in prison with the Riddler, and then there's still the Riddler, who, I mean, they could just say he's locked up and he's done with. But there's a lot of options for villains for a sequel to Batman.
There are, and there's one that I think is a really good idea. But they also, so you probably don't know this, but they teased a villain called Hush in the Batman. And so Hush is, and actually I kind of thought that because his design is actually really similar to what they went with for the Riddler, where it's like a face full of bandage, and like that's what's obfuscating. I thought they were actually going to kind of pull the wool over, and that he was going to be Hush instead of Riddler, and they were just going to be like, yeah, it's Riddler all along, haha. Nope, actually it's him. So I think either they are just going to be like, that's the way we did Hush, is by kind of referencing it, and they like in the newspaper clippings of the past, they talked about this Tommy Elliott surgeon guy, and that's who is Hush. But I would really like to see, and I think that they do a really good job with this, I'd love to see Hugo Strange, who is, and they did that for the Batman Arkham City. He is Arkham Asylum doctor who is a genius level, and he finds out on his own who Batman is. He's able to deduce that. And he runs the asylum, and so he's able to also like do experiments on people, and he's also able to like have dominion over all of the super villains in that prison. And so that is actually, it could be even the guy that was in love with what's her name? We said he could be the Scarecrow. He also could end up being Doctor Strange. I don't know.
Oh yeah. I know nothing about these villains, so who knows? Yeah. That one guy, the guy who was obsessed with Sophia, like the doctor guy, he was really creepy. He played creepy very well.
He did, yeah. He was Shades back in the Marvel, the TV Marvels, like the Daredevil. I think it was Luke Cage that he was on.
Okay,
but yeah, those ones. I was just kind of looking to see if there was anything about rumors for Batman 2.
I thought it was confirmed that they're making it, or is it still not for sure?
No, they are. I'm just seeing if they're going to say anything about who are antagonists. It's supposed to come out in 2026. Oh, I guess we got a year and a half. We got some time.
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like very confident that Penguin's going to be in it. If not the main villain, he's still going to be in it, I'm sure.
Yeah, I don't think he'll be the main, but I think he'll definitely be in it. So yeah, we'll see. There's a lot of directions Matt Reeves can go, and even though Matt Reeves wasn't the one who did the Penguin, he still had supervision over it. He supervised with the writing, and he handed it off and let other people write. But he was kind of like the guy they were bouncing ideas off of, and like, oh, this is where I want us to go with this character, that sort of thing. So.
Yeah, and the other thing about doing a Penguin season 2. I have to imagine that if they were planning on doing a Penguin season 2, they wouldn't have killed Victor. Just because there's so little limited characters they have to go back to. It's basically just Oz and Sophia, and if they want to make his mom wake up, But there's not many characters to bring back because most of them are dead.
Yeah. And so I can see them not doing it. You're right. I could see them not doing number 2, but at the same time, like they easily could find you can pull more characters out of nowhere. But
True.
I think it did its purpose because again, this age that we're in for Batman is the transition from the mobsters running the town to the supervillains running the town as a response to Batman's interventions.
Yeah. Well, there aren't many mobsters left either.
Yeah. And that was one thing I loved out of Batman Arkham City. There's this monologue that Hugo Strange has, and he's just like, have you ever stopped to think how all of this is your fault? And like blaming Batman coming into the system of like the escalation of crime in Gotham, how like all of these bad guys are a response to Batman's existence. And I'm like, that's a really interesting thought experiment. And I wouldn't mind seeing Matt Reeves explore that concept.
Yeah. Especially in this one, because the way that Batman begins is you're like right away at the crime scene, and Batman's just there, and all the cops are just like, he's not even supposed to be here. He's not law enforcement. And it's like, it's okay. He's with me. It's like, okay, we have to have some suspension of disbelief, because you would not allow some person to just be at the crime scenes, especially someone who you don't know who he is.
Yeah, agreed. But the reasoning there is like Gordon doesn't know who to trust within the police department. And so like there's so many corrupt cops. And so it's like, well, he knows he can trust himself. And there might be an unseen thing that we have seen that has caused him to trust Batman. The Batman Arkham Origins game does a really good like job of developing that relationship of like showing how Gordon came to trust Batman in that universe. And so it was like their first interaction, and then like Gordon had to count on Batman even though he didn't know his identity.
Yeah. But I could see it being more so like, okay, after all the police have gone, maybe bring them to the crime scene or go over notes with them, but like to parade them around in front of your entire police force. That was like, okay, that's a little bit much.
It is. But yeah, I think they're well done. I just we're too far gone in the darkness spectrum, but whatever.
Yeah.
Each their own.
The super dark stuff is usually not my thing.
Yeah.
Although I did love this. I love Breaking Bad, but Better Call Saul. And that stuff gets crazy dark at times too.
It does. it's Walt only had like 12 witnesses killed in prison over the course of 5 minutes. It's fine.
I think one of the more shocking ones there is actually, I think, when Howard Hamlin gets shot mid-sentence by Lalo too.
Yeah, I think some of the most depraved stuff is either Todd just without blinking shooting a kid off a bike.
Yeah,
or
absolutely. Or Andrea.
Oh, that was killing Andrea when the kid is still inside the house somewhere.
And making Jesse watch.
Yeah. No, I think actually, okay, here you go. I think it's the gang that made that one kid kill Combo, and then when Gus was like, no more using kids, they killed the kid. I think that is the worst thing that show did, even though the killing of the kid happened off screen.
Yeah, maybe we'll have to have another podcast where we rank the awful things that Breaking Bad universe did. It sounds like both a fun and awful podcast at the same time. Well, we may not do that. We'll see.
The feel good podcast of the year. Well, that's all that I've got for Penguin.
Here, yeah.
Let us know what you thought. This is a great show. Next week, one thing we're going to do is we're probably going to talk very, very briefly about Penguin again, but we're going to talk about what are some of the best shows that came out of 2024. I think the way maybe we might kind of discuss that instead is like, you guys all have different streaming services. Maybe you have more than one. We're going to go through the streaming services and say, hey, here's a couple of the shows that came out this year. Whether we have both seen them or not, we can at least say, hey, if you've got Netflix, here's something you should watch. This is what this is like. This is what this is like. Maybe we'll give you some suggestions that you might like and go check out on your own.
That's probably a good idea because this year last year I watched more new TV shows. This year the only two new TV shows I watched were both because we talked about them on the podcast.
You didn't catch up on Cobra Kai's new season yet?
I have not. No.
Well, they did this year. They did Cobra Kai in 2 phases, and I watched the first part of this season, and then they had the rest of it drop like a month and a half ago, and I haven't gotten to that yet. Maybe I'll have it by the time we record the next episode.
Maybe. All right. Should we jump into trivia?
We can. So last week we talked about, or last time, back in 2024, because we are probably in 2025 right now, we talked about Benihana Christmas. Hope you guys had a great Christmas, by the way. And so with Benihana Christmas, there's a part where they're doing karaoke, and they do a couple of songs, and one song is sung by a person who got a Dundee. And I didn't mean when Creed Bratton sang the song that he himself wrote or was performed as part of the Grassroots. I'm talking about the other song written by John Mayer. So John Mayer, this is our trivia. John Mayer is the only person who had a Dundee. He did not want his song specifically to be used because so many people used his songs in more like a parody fashion or wanted to. And he's like, okay, this song's going to be on the Your Body's a Wonderland song is going to be on a comedy. I don't know if I want to do that. And they kind of were saying that's not the way they're going to use it. And he's like, all right, well, here's my condition. If you give me a Dundee, you can use the song. So they gave John Mayer an actual Dundee in order for permission to use Your Body is a Wonderland as a song.
I think it was for something super random. I just listened to that episode of Office Ladies too, but it was something like tall. It was about his height. I think it's tallest music dude or something like that. It was something super random. It wasn't like good sport or something you would think that. No, it was something super random. Yeah.
Yes, quite.
And so interesting when we talked about that doing that trivia, Matt talked about what 2 people have Dundies. We talked about him and Creed, but I realized we never see Creed. There's a Dundee episode of season 2 and of season 7. We never see Creed win a Dundee. We assume he probably has won Dundies because he works at Dunder Mifflin. We just have never seen it.
Yeah.
So we can't confirm.
And even if he didn't win one, he stole someone else's.
That's true.
All right. Well, this week's trivia, there's a lot of different trivia pieces we could have gone with, but I'm going to go with leaning on my Batman knowledge. Because I love Batman. I love his graphic novels. And so I'm going to ask what actor, it's not actually related to this show. He wasn't in this show. But there's an actor who played the character of the Penguin's dad. But he played that character twice in 2 different Batman mediums. So what actor has twice played Penguin's father? Oswald Cobblepot's dad. Although in this one, for whatever reason, I don't know why, but they shortened his name Oswald Cobb for the Penguin. I don't know why they felt like Cobblepot was too far into comic land. I don't get it.
I don't have any answers for you either.
I don't know. Maybe they're big Inception fans and they loved Cobb, Leonardo DiCaprio's character.
Could be.
That was a weird pull. All right. Well, until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Brian.
And we're reminding you to stay tuned and keep watching.